On this screen, you can see the diagram shows the levee, shows the various toes of the levee, verse side and line side. It's a little higher here. On the top levee, which is where the crown's at. Levee is something that's located parallel to the stream, typically, and it's as opposed to a dam, which is across the stream, perpendicular to the stream. This is actually along the stream, and typically levees are not designed for sustained or long flood events. Usually it's more of a sporadic thing, like a couple day flood, something like that, usually in months, like it was in 2011. So that kind of changes the scenario a lot when you do that. As indicated earlier, we have annual inspections. We conduct them in the fall after we mowed the levee for the year. That way we can actually see defects that may exist out there. If it's a federal levee, which we have quite a few of, those are joined by the Corps years. They have a thing called levee tools, a peer-rated tool which gives them it helps them discover where there's defects in the past and revisit those sites that they've been fixed. The non-federal levees that are in the Public Law 8499 program, those are inspected usually on about a 2-year cycle with the Corps again. And non-federal levees that aren't in the program, such as this channel improvements, we inspect those ourselves, our own staff. I've already went over that. We travel levees by vehicle. We do have a side note throughout the year as our staff mows these structures. They also kind of inspect the structure as well. So they see road holes, they fill the road holes. So there's kind of ongoing inspection that occurs throughout the year, not just at one time, but basically engineering staff, including myself and the Corps staff, go out usually once a year after it's been mowed and kind of give it the overall viewpoint. We inspect the top and the side slopes. The drainage structures, they're typically just the inlet outlet, not really internally until later. That's a later topic. Relief wells, seepage berms, and pump stations. Again, the levee is a lot like a dam, just that the water's in there permanently usually. One of the unique things that's occurred in the last couple of years is the Corps of Engineers has a requirement that all drainage structures in levees must be inspected internally. In other words, televised, that type of thing, by the end of 2012. Well, we have 100 miles of levees. You can imagine there's a lot of pipes through these levees. We have roughly 500 pipes that we have through these levees. And a couple of years ago, we decided, well, we need to find some system to get these inspected and try to do it in a cost-effective way. Our survey staff, we actually purchased a pole camera, which is about $15,000 unit, and later purchased an actual rope or a tractor unit to go through the pipe. Because a lot of pipes have actually, they're not straight, they actually have bends and called broken back. A lot of times it's a description. So we started this process. We essentially completed everything this year. We have about 5 structures that have inlets we can't actually access. They're basically buried, so we've got to figure out some way to get at those inlets. We're trying to come in from the outlet end, but we have about 5 structures that haven't been actually inspected. Our goal is, again, I think the plan here is that the Corps is going to expect inspection reports the next time they inspect these levees, which is going to be basically fall of this year. And so we're on track to do that. We did, as a result of this effort too, our survey staff is GPS in every structure. So we actually have a location, an elevation, size of structure, all northeastern stuff. You definitely can find the structure. And we have this all GIS database. So it's a huge task to do this, but it's been very successful so far. First part, you can't really see this well, but we have a report table which we prepared for each of the projects. Includes a pipe ID, description like labeling, station number, size of pipe, type of pipe, which would be like a corrugated metal pipe or a RCP, which is a reinforced concrete pipe, which bank the creek is on, right or left, looking downstream. And then the deficiency, we're finding a lot of deficiencies are things typically like siltation in the pipe. We've actually started the process of taking care of some of those problems, but that basically is sewer jetting the pipe out, which you have to do. We're finding that because we haven't inspected really internally a lot of these pipes because they're too small to really get into. Some cases you have defects, you have things like the top picture actually shows the pipe has been gouged out, apparently with a backhoe bucket or something like that. The bottom photograph on the left shows in where the pipe's gone. And some of these structures are about 40 years old. Typically, a corrugated pipe, we think, lasts about 50 years in the Omaha area. So we're getting near the end of life with a lot of these structures that are older projects that are built in the 60s. And so we have that issue. And then also on the right-hand side, there's a picture of a joint that's pulled apart, an RCP pipe is pulled apart. And so what's going on there is actually you've got an open to the air. So your flap gate in that structure is serve no purpose really right now. So that's going to be a critical thing to get fixed before next spring. That's on our list to get fixed. But we're going to have to try to prioritize these structures and determine which ones are most critical. Ones in channels are not as critical as ones in levees. And so we'll have to pick them off one at a time. As a side note, we had one structure we're doing right now. It's a twin, it was a twin 72-inch CMP. We're putting in a twin 6x5 box. $300,000 project. That's just for construction alone. So anytime you start doing this, it's a major cost. We have projects that are a lot of them are 30 years old. So we know we've got a lot of maintenance costs down the road that we're going to deal with.